everybody. Welcome to the program here. I am Christopher Paul Carey. I'm the Vice President of Publishing at Edgar Rice Burroughs Incorporated, and I'm here today to talk with author Win Scott Eckert about his new novel, just about to be released, Korak at the Earth's Core, Book 1 of the Dead Moon Super Arc in the Edgar Rice Burroughs Universe series. So Win, of course, is an illustrious author. He's written a number of novels and a ton of short stories, and namely, he was the author of Tarzan Battle for Pellucidar in the Edgar Rice Burroughs Universe series. And he also collaborated on a couple novels with the author, Hugo Award-winning science fiction author Philip is a Farmer, The Evil in Pemberley House, and The Monster on Hold. And he's also worked with a ton of licensed properties from Zorro, The Phantom, Honey West, Phileas Fogg, Scarlet Pimpernel, Domino Lady, Sherlock Holmes, and a ton of other characters. So it's a pleasure to have him here and to talk about his book. So I'm just going to start out by asking Win some questions. So could you tell our viewers who is Korak and the world at the Earth's core, Pellucidar? What is that, and how does he end up going there? What, how, and why? What basically, what's the setup for your novel?
Sure. First of all, thanks, Chris, and to everyone at ERB Inc. and hello to all the listeners. So Korak is the son of Tarzan and was actually introduced in the fourth Tarzan novel by that name, the son of Tarzan. And that novel completely centered around Korak. Tarzan and Jane certainly made an appearance in it, but the novel was dedicated to Korak and was really Korak's origin story of how he went to the jungle and kind of acquired a bunch of jungle skills and survival skills, and is his story. Korak did appear, I would say, cameo appearances in subsequent novels by Burroughs, Tarzan the Terrible, and then Tarzan and the Golden Lion, and Tarzan and the Ant-Man. And again, those were cameo appearances. We did learn a little bit more about Korak and some of his other non-jungle skills in those books, but those were definitely not full-on Korak novels. In terms of the Hollow Earth, the world at the Earth's core, that is Pellucidar, and that's another one of Edgar Rice Burroughs's primary science fiction series, which is all about, just what it says. There's a hollow world under our Earth, and there's an eternal sun hanging in the middle of that world that gives life and warmth to a variety of creatures and Stone Age peoples. Dinosaurs, woolly mammoths, all sorts of amazing and fun creatures that live on the inside of this hollow sphere, which is called Pellucidar. Burroughs first sent Tarzan to Pellucidar. He crossed over his two major series in the book called Tarzan at the Earth's Core. I was privileged to send Tarzan back to Pellucidar a couple of years ago in the novel Tarzan Battle for Pellucidar. Pellucidar is a great place for Tarzan and for Korak and their kin to have adventures in, because there's very little in the way of current technology, and there's a lot of menaces and strange people and creatures and situations to overcome.
Cool. Yeah, and like people familiar with the new MonsterVerse stuff, like the King Kong Godzilla, they get to see a version of Pellucidar, I would say. But Burroughs was doing this back in 1929, a little bit before that. Just had to get that little dig in there. But
well, the thing is, the way it's kind of, it's sometimes it's hard for artists to visualize and to convey that. But that movie that you're talking about, at the end of that movie, I think it was Godzilla versus Kong.
Yep.
And Kong ends up, in a hollow earth. And I mean, the visual effects were
Yep.
really cool.
Yep.
Without naming it Pellucidar, and I'm sure they're not going to, but that
Of course.
essentially is what Pellucidar is.
Yeah. Yeah. So, why Korak? What was it that drew you to want to write about Korak? I know that before you wrote Tarzan Battle for Pellucidar, you were originally going to write Korak at the Earth's Core.
Yeah.
And then when we started the Universe series, we decided that we wanted to put you onto Tarzan instead. So what was it that you've been wanting to write about him for a long time, it sounds like? So
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's been one novel about Korak, and yet he's part of this larger tapestry of the whole Tarzan series and the whole Tarzan mythos. But Mr. Burroughs only really wrote one novel dedicated to him, and then we don't really get to find out what happened next. What was up with the rest of his life. Even Jane basically had her own novel in Tarzan's Quest. That was a Jane-centered novel.
yeah.
And up to that point, Jane had made some cameo appearances or some mentions, and then Burroughs returned full on to Jane, but he didn't do that with Korak. And, I don't know why, but the idea of his continuing story always fascinated me. And honestly, I'm really into family trees and families of heroes. It's a concept that I really, really dig, which is why I also really enjoy the John Carter books, because, Burroughs has done this before, giving John Carter, children and grandchildren. And I wanted to kind of continue in that tradition with Tarzan's family.
Yeah. What about the comics? Did you read the Korak comics?
So I read them, and they're wild. And they're a lot of fun, and they kind of go off in some really bizarre directions. That said, that Korak, well, extremely fun, is not necessarily the same Korak that we really read about in The Son of Tarzan. By the end of the Son of Tarzan, Korak is getting married. He's found a mate, his mate, his equal, Miriam, and the Korak comics kind of dispense with that and move him, make him a couple years younger again, and give him a bunch of, really strange adventures, and also set him up with, romance, like teenage, romances and stuff. Again, a ton of fun, but I really wanted to continue directly from what the information that was given in Mr. Burroughs's books.
Yeah. 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 And he did a really good job, a great job. Really making Korak seem like his own person, you mentioned Miriam. I should mention that the novel is actually set in the early 1970s.
Yeah.
So, and of course there's a longevity elixir involved, and that's why the characters are still young. But
Right.
What's Miriam up to in the early 1970s? We get to hear a little bit about her like what she went on to do.
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, I think it's important, in case there are some folks who have not read the whole Tarzan series, to note that the longevity is from Burroughs. It's not from us, right? So we're only going with what Burroughs already told us, that there are longevity elixirs that are going to allow these characters to live much longer lives. I had a lot of fun with Miriam, and I kind of, did the traditional Burroughs alternating chapter type of presentation, Korak and then Miriam, and then Korak and then Miriam, because they're both trying to get to Pellucidar, but from separate places on the surface world. They're not together. They hear that their daughter, Suzanne, has disappeared. Suzanne has lived in Pellucidar since 1943, since the events of Tarzan Battle for Pellucidar. But as you said, it's now the very early 1970s. So 25 to 30 years later, and Suzanne has disappeared, and they're both quite upset. They both set out for Pellucidar, using different means of getting there in order to rescue their daughter. In terms of what Miriam has been up to, she's a great character from Son of Tarzan too. She's really, he really put a lot of effort. Mr. Burroughs put a lot of effort into fleshing her out and not making her just a cardboard type of character. One of the things that she did as a very young child in the jungle, or when she was a captive in Africa, to soothe herself, kind of self-care in, to use 21st century, verbiage, is she would sing to herself, and she would kind of go into her own head, and it was her way of calming herself and centering herself. We learned in this book that Miriam actually was such a good singer that she became a professional opera singer, and that was her career.
Yeah, that's very cool. I thought very, very nice touch. I'm just gonna call out that we've got Ralph here in the chat and John Atwood. So
hey, John,
good to see people joining into the chat here. The novel takes a big time jump from in the timeline from the other Edgar Rice Burroughs Universe stories that we've published to date, and it's set in 1971.
Right.
Why did you decide to set it outside of the 1950s, where we kind of moved it forward slowly from ERB's passing?
Sure.
When the other ERB Universe stories were set.
So I think I mentioned a couple minutes ago, there's something about families of heroes that really, generational heroes, that really grabs me. Mm-hmm. And I wanted to continue to expand that. You and Kathy and Jim at Edgar Rice Burroughs Inc. gave me the opportunity to give Korak a daughter, Suzanne, in the last book, and Tarzan's granddaughter. And I wanted to keep on moving it forward another generation. And so although the character does not appear in this book, Suzanne and her mate, Lordan, of the Abella tribe in Pellucidar, they have a son now. And that son's name is Ranak. And again, we will not meet him in this book because it's only book one of the Dead Moon super arc, and we have 2 more books to go. Mm-hmm. But he will, be a front and center character in the next book. And I can't really explain it more than that, except I just love expanding these characters' families and giving them traits that are similar. All the skills and honor and courage, but also trying to figure out ways to make each one different and give them their own personality so that they're not just clones. It's kind of a challenge, but I enjoy it. So if I had not been given the opportunity to move it forward to the early 1970s, then there wouldn't have really been an opportunity to have, a 20-ish year-old Ranak coming forward the next book.
Yeah. So you mentioned, not just being clones of previous characters. Korak is definitely not a Tarzan clone. Like, you read this book, I mean, even in ERBs, he's definitely not a Tarzan clone. He's his own person.
That's right.
But almost even more so in your book, you build on his backstory, the ERB established. And so could you tell us a little bit about Korak's psychology and how he's different from his father, Tarzan of the Apes?
Absolutely. And, kind of without getting into modern terminology again, Korak was essentially abandoned or orphaned. And I don't mean that Tarzan and Jane abandoned him. It's just that he went off into the jungle. He took off into the jungle and then couldn't figure out how to get home, really, without preserving his dignity and honor. And so he stayed in the jungle, but he had to raise himself. Mm-hmm. And Tarzan, at least as a baby, had Kala. He had a mother. He had an adoptive mother. Korak doesn't really have that. He does have Akut, his buddy, but he's more like a brother, and I'm not saying that that's irrelevant or not a good relationship, but Korak didn't have kind of the same sort of parental guidance that even Tarzan did as a youngling in the jungle. So that's number one. And then number two, he's been in 2 world wars. And now Tarzan also has been in 2 world wars, or at least he was a guerrilla fighter in World War I, if he wasn't formally a member of any regiment or army, but different people respond to wartime conditions and what they experience in a different way. And so those are kind of the two things that really inform Korak's character. But I want to emphasize that Korak is honorable. You know, he is still courageous. He wants to do the right thing. But he has had in the past some personal demons to overcome, which he has successfully done. But, you know, sometimes things pop back up later on when they're least expected.
Yep. Let's not spoil it any further than that.
Okay. All right.
Oh, there was something you just mentioned I wanted to follow up on, and now I should have written it down. I'm blanking on it. So I'll move on to my next thing. And
maybe it'll still come up.
I can think of it. But Edgar Rice Burroughs always had, this is like another really nice touch, I think, that you did in the novel. Edgar Rice Burroughs always had very interesting creatures and monsters in his works, in his tales. And you have a very, very interesting species in Korak at the Earth's core. And I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about them and what the inspiration was for them, because I suspect, sure, knowing a little bit of your background, that there was an inspiration for these creatures.
There usually is. I tend to inject, you know, some kind of personal stuff into my writing. The creatures that you're talking about are called the sea turtle folk. And Miriam encounters them. At first, she's not sure if they're going to be friend or foe or what they're all about. But they're sentient. I mean, you know, maybe that's a spoiler, but you know, you probably figure that out.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, most of Burroughs's, you know, types of creatures have some kind of sentience. The inspiration is I'm really drawn to sea turtles. I love sea turtles. I haven't been to the beach in a couple of years, but every time we go, you know, I try to do, wherever we are, you know, in the Bahamas or something like that, a sea turtle experience. You know, sometimes I'll just stand there, you know, and watch them for like an hour at a time, just kind of floating around. And I just think they're magnificent creatures. They're really beautiful creatures. And the funny thing is when I've stood and watched them, and then it's feeding time, and you know that people come at the sea turtle experience or whatever, they know what time it is. They start to swim around a lot, and they're getting stirred up. And people think of, you know, sort of ocean dwelling or sea dwelling creatures as not really having that much intelligence, or and these creatures, I'm just really drawn to them. So I've seen them, you know, playing in the surf in Hawaii. I've seen them in the Bahamas, in the Atlantis, which is you know, a more human controlled environment. But yeah, that's it. So yeah. I decided to put some intelligent sea turtles in the book.
Yeah, I mean, what was cool about it was, you know, you obviously had some deeper knowledge of turtles in it, and you applied that in a very science fictional, like a way a science fiction writer would approach it, and then the way that they communicated and stuff like that. It was, I won't, you know, like that. That's really, really cool. I really enjoyed that.
Thanks.
So the dead world. So yeah. the dead world is what, you know, we also call it the dead moon. Burroughs always called it the dead world.
Right.
Pellucidar's moon.
Right.
And I see some questions popping up in the chat here, so we will answer those at the end. So I'm going to go through here with the interview, which won't be too long.
Okay.
So the dead world is Pellucidar's moon. It's a very strange moon. Could you talk a little bit about it and maybe hint a little bit about how you're going to deal with it? Because we don't really learn much about it in the original books.
Right.
You know, so we never get to go there.
Exactly. Although what we do learn presents some interesting conundrums, right? About like how to actually use the dead moon, because it's sort of a very confined, bound set of circumstances that Burroughs did did tell us about, and so we have to stick to that. So the dead moon hovers above the surface, the inner surface of Pellucidar, about 1 mile above the surface. And as the inner world and presumably the outer world rotates, the moon is also rotating geosynchronously so that it's always over the same spot of land in Pellucidar, which is called the Land of Awful Shadow. And the reason for that is that it's a permanent land of shadow. The moon always being in the same place, therefore casts a permanent shadow from Pellucidar's central sun. David Innes, the hero of the Pellucidar books, in a couple of the different ones, actually looked at the dead world and speculated about it. He could see trees and, geography and seas, and in particular, a very large lake that he thought of using to establish a chronometer within Pellucidar, because the dead moon, the dead world, actually rotates on an axis. And so that lake would appear on a regular basis. Of course, the people of the inner world had no interest in that, no use for that. But the question arises, if it's only hanging a mile above the surface, how big could it possibly be? It's really not that big.
Yeah.
So how could there be trees and oceans and lakes and stuff on it? And what else could be there?
Yeah.
So without going into really too much more than that, I would just say that there are other aspects of the wider Edgar Rice Burroughs universe. And I don't mean the books that we're working on, but Mr. Burroughs's original books, where he kind of addresses situations like that. One book in particular is the John Carter book called Swords of Mars. And another book is Tarzan and the Ant-Man. So you don't have to read those books, by the way, in order to enjoy this book. At least I don't think so. But it could be helpful too. I mean, it's, a little extra nuggets of information, could be instructive. Everything you need, though, is in this book. You don't have to read other stuff.
Yeah, we do put some footnotes pointing to other things, but you're feel free to ignore them. You can enjoy the story on its own. So exactly. I was just going to show a map here. So that's the Land of Awful Shadow. You see that shaded area right there above my finger. So that's gives you some sense of how small the moon really is, if that's the size of the shadow.
Exactly. And think about how vast the interior of Pellucidar is and how small that little area is of the shadow.
Another interesting thing is how, you pull out how Edgar Rice Burroughs talks about how the moon actually plays a part. You don't get a whole lot of religion in the Pellucidar books. You get a little taste of it. There is one more advanced society that actually has priests and stuff like that, but you don't get a whole lot of religion. But there is a spiritual belief revolving around the dead moon that might be interesting to talk about.
Yeah, so the spiritual belief is that, when one of your compatriots, family members, friends, allies dies, that the body should be put up in trees so that birds can come and kind of, take pieces of the body away and fly them to the dead moon. And that's a good thing, right? That's what they want to happen. If you bury a body in the ground, then little demons come. And they carry the body parts away to the Moloch Az, which is basically the fiery sea below Pellucidar, that is sort of like the foundation or underpinning of the world of Pellucidar in their worldview, right? Obviously not in what we know about it being a hollow ball, but in the locals' worldview, Pellucidar, is undergirded by this flaming sea.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a bad thing. You would not want to go there.
Yeah, that's why they call it the dead world. So that's where that name comes from. And we had an interesting conversation because there's a passage in I think it's Tanar of Pellucidar with the sea. So where they actually go up to the polar opening, and the outer sun is actually shining through and kind of illuminating the waters of the ocean. and it looks like it's on fire. And so
Yeah.
that's probably where that ERB doesn't really come out explicitly and say that that's where the Moab as idea comes from, but I'm pretty sure that's what he was getting at. They were seeing that reflection of the outer sun,
Exactly.
So
which they couldn't explain. So
yeah, they had no way to explain it. So
right.
Another thing that I think it plays an important role in this book and in the trilogy at large. It doesn't really get answered in this book, but you begin to see something about it, is what has historically been called the Korak time discrepancy. And I don't want you to spoil anything about that.
I won't.
But if you could just explain what the Korak time discrepancy is, and then just noted that it is addressed in this series, in this trilogy.
Sure. So the Korak time discrepancy kind of arose from Mr. Burroughs' own books and his own internal chronology, or lack thereof, although he might have known more than we thought, right? So, The Son of Tarzan takes place in the 19 teens, probably early 19 teens, give or take. And yet by 1918, we learn that Korak is serving at the Argonne front at the very tail end. This is the last weeks, the last month and a half of the Great War, and it's not explainable how he could have aged, right? Like the ages just don't line up. So essentially, there are two camps to explain this within fandom, right? There's one camp that says, well, if you move the original events of Tarzan of the Apes backward in time, 18 years or whatever it is, 1888 to 1872, I guess would be 16 years. If you move that back, then all of the subsequent books will line up, and it will make sense for Korak to be that age during Tarzan the Terrible. There's another camp that has tried to explain it in different ways, by maybe saying that, there are two Koraks, like there was a biological son of Tarzan that we met in the Beasts of Tarzan, and then Korak was actually a different son, maybe an adopted son or something like that. That's it. We are aware of the discrepancy. I'm just going to say that, like we're very aware of the discrepancy, and it will be addressed. Not in either of those ways.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to say. I don't think I'm okay with you saying that. Yeah. Neither of those is the way that it goes down in this series, in this trilogy. Yes. And it very much is a trilogy. Like, you're going to need to, sorry, you're going to have to buy all three of them. If you don't like cliffhangers, you shouldn't be reading Edgar Rice Burroughs then, because he had cliffhangers all over the place.
All over the place. The first three Mars books, they're a set. You have to read them. The first two Pellucidar books. The first one ends on a complete cliffhanger. Yeah. You get the set. Same thing with Tarzan. The first two Tarzan books.
In fact, like, that's one of the reasons Tarzan and the John Carter stories, why they became so successful, was because he had so many fans writing into the pulps who were demanding a sequel. You can't end it like that. You can't end it like that. You got to get, like, you can't, Tarzan and Jane can't be separate, separated.
Which is a testament to his writing, and really how it grabbed people.
Absolutely.
So I mean, some cliffhangers are like, whatever. I hope that's not the case with mine, but definitely with Mr. Burroughs, he was a master of that.
We actually have the letters. The editor at the All Story sent them to ERB, and so we have them in Tarzana in our archives. Janet ran across them in the vault, and they're pretty amazing. There's like such a desperation to the quality of those letters.
Didn't you put some of them in the authorized library?
Yeah,
in the bonus back matter.
Yeah.
Really cool.
Yeah, but there's a lot more. There's tons more. There's like a whole bunch of them.
Sweet.
But, so
if
yeah.
you're done, I don't know if that covered your questions, but I wanted to point out that, in this book, you have a bonus novella called Pellucidar, Death of the Dawn.
Dawn of the Death Slayer.
Sorry, Dawn of the Death Slayer. Sorry, Dawn of the Death Slayer. And I was wondering if you could kind of set that up for us and tell us, what that's about.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of what I want to say, because I do want people to go into it with fresh eyes. And so I don't want to talk a lot about one of the characters in it. But it's essentially a story about, it revolves around the Gorbuses. So the Gorbuses are these sort of ghoulish creatures that inhabited this area called the Forest of Death, kind of far away from the central area of the Federated Kingdoms of Pellucidar, kind of on another like kind of subcontinent far away, closer to where the events of your first novel, Tarzan Battle for Pellucidar, took place. Very, very close to that region.
Right.
And
close to where like Von Horst was in Back to the Stone Age in that area.
Yeah. And so the protagonist, who I'm not going to talk very much about because I don't want to spoil things, he goes investigating them, investigating these disappearances that are attributed to the Gorbuses. So the people basically from around, probably from Von Horst's village and stuff. We don't really specify it, but people from the edges of the empire, the Federated Kingdoms, start going missing. And so he goes to investigate this. And he's dealing with a lot of issues in his own life, and kind of feels very empty inside. And so he's kind of doing this almost to try to feel alive again, this main character. And he runs into a very interesting group of people who actually have a relationship with the Gorbuses. Normally the humans and Gorbuses don't get along, but these people, for very specific reasons, have a sort of a history with the Gorbuses. And while they're not exactly friendly with the Gorbuses, they sort of are, I would call them the protectors of the Gorbuses in a way. I'm not sure if I want to go much further into that, but the tribe that this protagonist runs into is a very interesting tribe, because their whole religion is based around the afterlife. And the one of the main characters that he runs into in the story is Dar the Shadow. So if you order this book from our web store, you'll get a Dar the Shadow trading card. That's her. It's art by Mike Wolfer.
Cool.
The protagonist and Darva do not get along, actually, when they run into it. You'll see that right away. It's not much of a spoiler because there's a conflict right away, but they're kind of thrown into an adventure together. And I'm really proud of this little story. I think that it somehow, my subconscious put the pieces of the puzzle together as I was writing it, and it all just fell into place. And there's, I think it's probably one of my best attempts at characterization. Like, I think the characterization in it, I was able to pull it off, if a writer can judge his own work,
Yeah.
But that's my feeling. So I'm very excited about it. I'm very interested to see what people think of it. But
well, I've read it, and I had a lot of fun and enjoyed reading it. And I think something else that really, and maybe it was just happenstance, but it kind of, even though there's not a literal connection between your story and my story in the Dead Moon super arc, on paper, thematically,
absolutely,
right? Because it's about the afterlife, and I talk about what happens on the dead world, and sort of philosophically about that in my book, and your story is about the afterlife. And so I think it was a really good pairing. I think it's really cool.
Yeah. So potentially there will be more stories. I don't have any definitive plans right now, but that was definitely something I was thinking when I was writing it. So it's pretty much the birth of a new hero.
Cool.
in this story. So, so that's pretty much that. I did want to mention, so we'll go answer questions now, but I did want to quickly mention that we have a Kickstarter that's going to be launching very soon, and the teaser page is up on Kickstarter. So if you go to kickstarter.com and you type in Victory Harbin,
Okay.
Harben,
Yeah.
we have a Victory Harbin, the complete graphic novel adventures. And so that's going to go live in the next couple weeks or so. And but you can go to the teaser page on Kickstarter and click the Notify Me on Launch button. And you'll have to sign into your Kickstarter account or create a new Kickstarter account. And I put, if you're watching this on YouTube, I know some people are watching on Facebook, but on the YouTube channel, I actually have a link to the Kickstarter in there.
Okay.
And I have links to Korak at the Earth's Core from buying it at our website, and from on Amazon. There's the Kindle and the audio. Well, the audiobook I don't have listed yet, but I have the Kindle version. And this is the book right here, by the way.
Yeah.
So, and the collector's edition has a special boards on it, which
beautiful.
Some of you might have seen my other video that I put on Facebook, but it's got Edgar Rice Burroughs' original map.
Really cool.
On there, it is really nice. That was designed by Mike Wolfer. He does a lot of our design work. And you'll get a signed book plate that'll be signed by Win and myself, and a facsimile signature of Edgar Rice Burroughs. And then you also get the 2 trading cards, one with the cover art by E.M. Gist. Fantastic cover art. Oh, that's what I wanted to talk about. It was a coot.
Oh.
And then you'll also get the Dar the Shadow trading card. And you get the Darva card if you order any edition. But Akut, I do want to, before we go to the questions.
Okay.
Oh my gosh, Akut. He's my favorite character in your book. He is perfect. He you know, I think like a lot of people when they read like Victory Harbin Fires of Halos, they really identified with Hucklebuck. They really liked Hucklebuck. But man, Akut, you did such a fantastic job with that. And
thank you.
And the idea that that it's not really the same. It's not really the same physical Akut. This is really a generation. Is it 3rd generation, or how many generations?
Yeah, so
it's his grandson.
It would be it would be the originals from way back in the Son of Tarzan. It would be the original's grandson.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, but you know.
But
he seems to have memory. He seems to be Akut somehow. Strangely, he seems to have memories of his grandfather.
Right.
And you know, I think readers of the Moon series by Edgar Rice Burroughs will get some understanding of how that may have happened, although it's not explained in your novel explicitly.
It's not.
But it's a very, very cool, and he is so cool. Like people are going to love him. People like that. He's your secret weapon in that book.
Thanks. Maybe in a future Kickstarter. So I don't know if you can mention the extras that are coming in your Victory Harbin Kickstarter or not. So I'm not gonna, because I don't.
Not yet.
Okay. Fine. Well, maybe some.
Well, we can mention the Hucklebuck. Yeah,
that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
So you've got a Hucklebuck, plushie or whatever, coming. Maybe someday we can get an Akut plushie, right?
Yeah.
Akut was a lot of fun. He's like giving Korak a brother, like a brother. So it's like 2 brothers going on this adventure, really respect and love each other and always have each other's backs. And I just, you probably know also, Chris, and maybe some of the other folks, that I'm really, I just dote on my animals, and pets. And you do as well.
Yep.
Chris, because I know that about you.
My kitty's right over there.
Exactly. Exactly. In the Tarzan book that I wrote, I went through every single animal I've ever had since I was 3 years old, every single pet. And it's called Tuckerization in science fiction parlance. It's where you put someone, you change their name a little bit, but you put them in the book.
Mhm.
Every animal I've had was mentioned in some way in that book,
Yeah.
until this book, which we have a new dog, which we didn't have when I wrote Tarzan. So the new dog is in this one. But the point is that I just really got, animals, they have emotions, they have an inner life, and I wanted to bring that and try to do,
Yeah.
I guess you thought I succeeded, so thank you.
Oh,
But I try
absolutely.
to,
Yeah.
bring that inner life onto the page
Yeah.
for a boot.
Yep. It's great. It's fantastic.
Thank you.
So I'm gonna kind of scroll through our comments here.
Okay.
So we got Rick Brett Schneider here,
Hey,
and
Rick.
Michael K. Vaughn. Thanks for promoting ERB on your channel. Really appreciate it. He says he was born in '71, so it will be fun to see what Korak was up to at that time.
Okay.
So
Cool.
we have the chat. That's the username. The chat here would say Korak was a Mangani fighter in the war. And then Ralph B wants to ask the question: will we ever see Korak's sister Charlotte?
I'm gonna go out on a limb and say yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Let's see here. Okay, here we have Jim Yates has a question here. Are there any connections between the depiction of Korak in this trilogy overall with the Wold Newton universe?
No. And it's a great question, Jim. And, it's not unexpected given all of my work in the Wold Newton universe, but this is the Edgar Rice Burroughs universe. And so Wold Newton explanations for things or theories don't apply. And that kind of goes back to what I was talking about with the great Korak time discrepancy and, one camp of fandom and their explanation is kind of a Wold Newtonian explanation, although not every, person who has bought into the explanation of an adopted son or an additional son is a Wold Newtonian, but that's not the explanation. And we did not draw on Wold Newton mythology in order to answer these questions. We're really drawing on the science fictional mythology that Burroughs created and trying to answer these questions within the confines of what Burroughs already told us in whatever series, the Moon series, the John Carter series, trying to draw on hints and some of that literary archaeology that is just within the Burroughs oeuvre.
Yeah, I would add that if you want to look at it like it's part of the Wold Newton universe, there's this concept in Wold Newton studies called circles of Wold, which means you can incorporate whatever you want into your own version of the universe, of whatever universe you want to do. If you want to connect something, you can do it in your head with your own head canon. And so you're always free to do that. We do not object to that kind of fan speculation and stuff like that. So
absolutely,
but it's not. But we are really trying to stay true to ERB here. That's the point. But it may, there's always overlap, right? So you can do it in your head canon, no problem. So Rick has a little comment here, which is great. The back matter is some of the best reasons to buy the new authorized library editions.
Agreed.
Of Edgar Rice Burroughs, which I totally agree with. We put a lot of work into those. So John wants to know how long before the second Korak book comes out. Just curious. Well, I mean, that's kind of aimed at both of us, I guess.
Yeah.
A little bit. So.
Well, so I am working on the second book in the Dead Moon super arc now. But I will say it's not a Korak book. It's Pellucidar, Land of Awful Shadow. And then the third book is really a Tarzan book. Although they're all going to interplay together, which is why it's the Dead Moon super arc or trilogy, right? So Korak will definitely be back in the subsequent books. But the focus shifts, right, from main character to main character. So how long? As soon as humanly possible. I'll be I'm working on it now. I'll be submitting it for approval later in the year for Chris's approval. But Chris is a busy man. He has authorized library editions to get out, other ERB universe books that may or may not be coming, which is not my place to talk about, and all kinds of other projects. So and it's not, unfortunately, it's not just a straightforward matter of turning in the manuscript and publishing it a month later, right? There's conversations and tweaks and things that we have to talk about to make sure that the whole universe is integrated and that it makes sense. So Chris had a lot of great comments on my first manuscript, but it definitely was not done and here you go and I'm off to the next one. We had to work on it. And I think it's a better product for it. So that's a lot of blathering just to say, hopefully by the end of the year, but maybe, into this time next year.
Yeah. Yeah. So it'll be either toward the end of this year or early next year. I would anticipate that it wouldn't be any later than that. But that's the current plan. So, Rick also says we need more graphic novels. I agree. We got Savage Chuck here. He's excited about this.
Chuck.
So to see Chuck. We got Matthew here. Any more Korak percolating, and how's Rocky? Well,
So
yeah.
Rocky's my dog. He's been going through some health issues. So thank you for asking, Matthew. They're both, he and his brother right below me here. They're chilling. Any more Korak percolating? Yeah, but again, Korak will be back in the next 2 books, maybe not as the front and center character, but everything is going to get involved, and it does involve him.
But we would love at ERB Inc. We would love to do another Korak front and center novel too.
Yeah.
So we would ideally want to get series going for all of these characters. The chat says thumbs if you like, thumbs up if you like. I would encourage you to click like on all of our videos wherever it's on Facebook or on YouTube. And if you could subscribe to our YouTube channel, if you're not already, that would be great. And we've got Lawrence Dunn from the UK says, have too many Turks and Kalas to want Akut as well. So
I don't know. Maybe we'll change your mind about Akut.
I mean, yeah, you gotta read the book. That's all I'll say, because he is one of the best characters, if not my favorite character in your book. So let's see, we've got Henry Lopez. Congratulations to both of you, since this is the second novel you've written set in Pellucidar. Is there some aspect you would still wish to explore in future novels?
Yeah, I mean, the next one will be the third, and then the Tarzan one, will be the fourth. I mean, they're all Pellucidar centered, because these are the Dead Moon or the Dead World super arc. Yeah, I mean, I want to continue to explore new societies, new tribes, new antagonists. I like to do a mix, right? So some of Burroughs's, already created characters or antagonists definitely show up, but I'm also really enticed by the idea of creating, new creatures and new characters. Pellucidar is a big place. The land mass is 3 times, I think, that the land that we have here on the surface world. So there's a lot to explore.
Yeah, and Pellucidar in the new universe books that we're doing is really sort of the central hub. That's kind of how I view it. Like, so much of it connects to there, because you got Jason Gridley, who also communicates with Barsoom, and and now you got Tarzan going there, and Korak going there, and Victory Harbin is from Pellucidar, and so we're definitely like Pellucidar is something that we'll definitely be doing a lot more in, I think, in the future. We've got Rick says we need a detailed color map of Pellucidar that we can buy. I don't know if Jim Gerlach still has his available. That one is hanging on your wall behind you.
It's above my shoulder. Right.
He used to have them available. This was at erbbooks.com. But I don't know if he still has any left. But I agree, Pellucidar maps. But Win's book has a great new map in it. that we did. We actually did it by examining several different Pellucidar maps by Edgar Rice Burroughs, some of which were unpublished, and trying to reconcile them and create this new map. So it's a pretty darn cool map.
Map by Mike Wolfer,
Yeah.
who also does the great logo design and all the rest of the design on the book.
Yep. We got Jim Yates saying thanks, Win, and
You
John
bet.
Atwood saying thanks for the info to both of us, and then we got Brad Mengels here. So
hey, Brad.
So our friend Brad from Australia. Rick says the map is sold out. So that's too bad. But yeah, you never know. I would like to do maps. I'd like to get a nice Barsoom map too.
Yeah.
Modifius, who did the John Carter role-playing game, I don't know if they still have they might be sold out too, honestly, but they had a really kind of cool Barsoom map. But I love maps. So I'm trying to put them all in the new novels. I should mention that we have another Edgar Rice Burroughs. So Win's book is I don't think we said, it's gonna release very soon. So we've already received part of the shipment of the books into our warehouse in Tarzana. We're waiting for the full shipment so we can fulfill all the orders. But we're hoping to ship before the end of the month. It's going to go live on Amazon on April 2nd, the Kindle version. So it's coming out very soon. So it's not long to wait.
And
but we do have
an audio book too, correct?
An audio book will be coming. That's going to be coming a little later.
Sure.
It's going to take them a while to produce that.
Okay.
But we do have a new ERB Universe novel that is going to go up for pre-order very, 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 very soon. So
Great.
I've been working very, very hard. My team has been working hard. Our designer, Mike Wolfer, has been working hard. Charlotte, who does our website, has been and puts up the product pages, has been working hard. So pending announcement incoming very, very soon.
Great.
So stay tuned. So sign up to our newsletter, please. If you go to edgarriceburroughs.com, there's a field there on the right-hand side of the page that you can sign up on. I put a link in our YouTube show notes also. But that's the best way to make sure you get all of the new news of all the new products coming out, all the new books coming out. So any other questions while you got us here? Todd Luck. Hi, Todd. Good to see you. Another great supporter on YouTube of ERB. So he says, will the Moonmaid trade paper be available on ERB's online store? Yes. Yeah. We're actually going to put it available first in the Kickstarter for the Victory Harbin thing. So it'll be an add-on in the Kickstarter first, and then it'll go into our online store. So it's coming very soon. So sorry, it's a little bit of a delay on that one, but we've had a lot going on. So, but good question. We've got another request for maps. So yeah, it is hard to read the maps on ebooks and things like that. They're very, very small unless you have like a certain kind of tablet that you can enlarge it. But and we got the chat. It says thanks for the vid, more please. Yeah, so yeah, we will be doing more videos. I'm really going to try to start getting our YouTube channel up and running because we haven't done a whole lot with it. I would like to get some new YouTube content out. My little secret project that's not secret now because I'm talking about it is I want to start doing YouTube shorts and get a bunch of YouTube shorts out that inform the world about the wonders of the Edgar Rice Burroughs universe. So, but yeah, we will do more videos, absolutely. So, we got, this is our friend Ray, I believe.
Hey, Ray.
He would hope to see us at Pulp Fest this year, which we will be there.
Yes. So
Pulp Fest is going to be celebrating the 100th anniversary of The Land of Time Forgot, the publication of the book, of all three stories in the trilogy, and it's also the 50th anniversary of the film. And if anybody's at WonderCon down in Anaheim in a couple weeks, we are going to have a panel there at WonderCon, and please check it out because we're going to have a very special guest I don't know if I can announce it yet. I know WonderCon was like, they didn't want us to talk about our panel until they announced them. I'm not sure if they have it up yet, but we have a very special guest related to the Land That Time Forgot film.
Cool.
There. So come see us there. And we're also going to be at the paperback show on the LA Vintage Paperback Show on the 17th. So we will have a table there, a booth there, selling all the new books, and we will, if we will at least have the paperbacks of Korak at the Earth's Core, because we have those in stock already.
And Ray, I'll be at Pulp Fest as well, so we'll see you there.
Yeah, yep. And Rick wants to know about sorry, ERB Universe subscriptions. That's something I've talked about since I've discussed internally with my team since the beginning. We haven't found a way to make it work. It's a lot more complicated than you would think with payments and things like that. So we haven't really found a way to make it work, but it would be a nice thing, wouldn't it? And something that I'm always willing to explore and try to find ways to make it work. Todd, I think, came in late. Korak at the Earth's Core is not yet shipping, but it will be shipping very soon. So we're just waiting for the rest of the shipment to come from the printer. So we got part of the shipment in. We got our paperbacks in, but we did not get in the hardcovers or collector's editions yet. And we don't, just due to logistics and things like that, we don't really ship until we get all the books in hand. The hope is that by the end of the month, we'll be shipping the book. And it's coming out regardless on Amazon on April 2nd. So Rick says the LA Vintage Paperback Show is great, which I would agree. It's a really good show. All right. I think that's it. We've been running for almost an hour. We were going to try to keep this to 20 minutes, right?
Right. So much for that.
So
hopefully it was interesting, at least for the folks who stuck around. Thank you very much.
Our ERB Universe friend, Gary Gravel,
Gary,
is here. So good to see you, Gary.
Awesome. Thanks, Gary.
Yep. And we got Philologus. Philologus. Just want to say that I love all the universe books. Great direction ERB has taken. Thank you so much. We put a ton of work into it. We pour our hearts out into it, and we have a very small team, so really appreciate the love there.
Thank you.
So, and our friend Chris Adams is here too. Chris has a great book.
Yes.
Great book out now. Go buy it. It's called Dark Tides of Mars, a novel of Barsoom, available on erburroughs.com and on amazon.com and anywhere fine books are sold.
Agreed. A really good book.
So, all right, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us, and we'll catch you later. We'll do another video soon. So,
all right. Thanks, everyone.
Take care.